Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Wheeler, United Residential Mortgage. Hey, we are going over closing costs today. Who pays them? What are buyer-specific costs? What are seller-specific costs? What are standard costs? What are costs that buyers should be looking at on when they're comparing lenders? What are lender-specific fees and charges versus what are maybe third-party charges? So you need to look and consider all of this when trying to decide, what the best loan situation for you is, whether a lower rate with more cost or a higher rate with less cost. But we're going to kind of try to sum that up in a short window of time here. I'm going to try to do it in under 5 minutes. If you have any questions, otherwise dig into details. Obviously, feel free to reach out to me. You'll have my number in the details here in the description. And feel free to reach out to me or schedule a time to talk. Be more than happy to dig into some of those details. So you'll see on your screen here is a loan estimate. So this is a generic one. It's made up. I pulled this from the government regulators website as a generic form here, or generic version of it with a made up company. And so this is the loan estimate. This is a general standardized form that lays out the terms of the loan and the cost of the loan. This is one that every lender has to provide to everybody obtaining a home loan, a fixed rate home loan in particular. But so there are other forms that some lenders use on top of this, a closing cost worksheet, which is more of an itemized spreadsheet type form. But this particular form is required by law for every lender to provide throughout the loan process. So for purposes, there is another form that I like to provide clients with because it's easier to read. It's more of a spreadsheet and it's itemized. But we also will provide this because it's required by law in every transaction. So this is a more generalized form, and for that purpose, more standardized. That no matter what lender you worked with, you would see this form at some point. Once you start it, or within 3 days of starting the loan application process. So I'm going to use this form for that purpose. So we'll be kind of digging in. So for the purpose of this video, we're talking about closing costs. So I'm not going to dig into all the details on this form. We'll go over that in another video. But we're going over closing costs specifically here. So we'll get into the itemized part on this form. And this is where all the boxes of all the fees are listed. And these are going to be all the buyers related costs. So the majority of the costs in a buyer related transaction, or in a let's say a purchase transaction, obviously in a refinance transaction, all of the costs are going to be related to the homeowner or but in a purchase transaction, the home buyer will pay most of the closing costs are attributed to the buyer. The seller does have some costs. They're not necessarily always laid out on this form, but their seller specific costs are substantially lower. There is a closing fee, the title costs, the title company charges, and then there's some transfer taxes and things like that that the seller has to pay. Now, these are the buyer's costs. So the buyer has to pay these costs on top of their down payment, but somebody else can pay the buyer's cost for them. So you can negotiate for the seller to pay the buyer's cost. That's called a seller credit or seller concessions. Also, the lender can pay the buyer's cost, and that is in the form of a lender credit. What generally takes place is you'll qualify for a specific interest rate, and you have to qualify for a higher interest rate, to get that lender credit. So you'll take a higher interest rate, get a credit to offset those costs. So, but as you'll see, box A is the most important box, one of the most important boxes, I should say, on this form, because this is what you're comparing lenders to. And so box A is what you're really going to want to look at. We refer to all of these charges except for points as junk fees, because us as a mortgage brokerage, United Residential Mortgage, we don't charge any application fee, nor do we charge an underwriting fee. We do have some investors that charge underwriting fees. We normally offset that with a lender credit, but we don't charge an application fee or a processing fee or administration fee. We refer to those as junk fees. So generally on most of our transactions, we have 0 lender fees. Now, if you wanted to buy your interest rate down, that's called points. or a discount fee, otherwise known as points. That's just basically prepaid interest. So you're paying some interest to buy your rate down a little bit lower. We would have to run the numbers. That'd be another video to get in to show you how that makes sense and whether that makes sense to do that. So if a lender is offering you a really low rate compared to another lender, you're going to want to go immediately to box A to see if they're charging you how much money they're charging you to get that rate, and if they have additional fees associated with their situation. So if you have one lender that has a slightly higher interest rate, but they have zero lender fees, then the other lender, you're going to want to look at that difference and say, is it worth it, and do the comparison there, which we can help you analyze. So box A, important box to analyze when you're looking at the cost. I've already ran over the 5 minutes, so I apologize, but it's a little more lengthier than what I had anticipated. Box B, now the remaining. So box A are all the lender related charges. The remainder of these boxes here, all associated with a letter, are all third party related. And when I say third party, that just essentially means that there is another company not related to the lender that charges fee for a specific service, i.e. an appraisal or credit reporting company, things like that. So all of the other fees associated with a real estate transaction are going to be third party related. So you're going to see a lot of cost on here. So if you're comparing lenders, you don't necessarily need to compare these third party costs, because these third parties will be required more than likely in your real estate purchase transaction. So you can use different companies. For example, C is where most of your title fees are going to be. Two lenders can use the same exact title company and have the same exact title estimate or be slightly varied. So if one lender shows you title costs that are a few $100s difference than another lender showing you, well, maybe they're using different title companies. You could use the same title company to get a comparison for that. So it's not a good comparison when you're comparing lenders. Again, you just want to look at box A when you're comparing lenders on what the better deal is. Again, all these other closing costs, the lender's not charging you. These are charged by other third parties for pest inspection. You see the other examples of these here. Same with these other boxes, recording fee. These are government fees, homeowners insurance, taxes, escrow, all of these, again, unrelated to the lender, but we disclose them to show you all the costs associated with the transaction. So hopefully this all made sense. I'm more than happy to dig into some of these details further. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, just wanted to kind of show you a gist of the closing costs, what you're looking at, who pays the cost, and hope you found this helpful. Thanks a lot, guys. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My number should be in the description. And other than that, hope you have a wonderful day. Again, Ryan Wheeler, United Residential Mortgage. I hope to hear from you soon. Take care.